Hello students, welcome to today's video lecture. In this video lecture, we are going to discuss about nomenclature of carboxylic acid and some of its important derivatives. Carboxylic acid forms a very important class of organic compound and knowing their name is very important and vital for us. If we know the name of carboxylic acids, we can also successfully name some of its very important derivatives such as aldehydes, acid amide, acid halide, acid anhydride and esters, because of which knowing the name of carboxylic acid, common name as well as its IUPAC is very important for us. So without wasting any further time, let us start with today's session and start learning about nomenclature of carboxylic acids. So when we start about nomenclature of carboxylic acid, what a student has to understand is the functional group first. In fact, for any nomenclature of any organic compound, one has to understand the functional group, general representation of any organic compound, and then we always go ahead with examples. Same we will do with carboxylic acids as well. So starting off with my title as carboxylic acid. Now in carboxylic acid, the functional group that we have here is C double bond O single bond O H. Okay, this is the functional group for carboxylic acid. Now if we try and break up this functional group itself, it can be broken down into two parts. Okay, if you observe closely, you will realize, and I'm sure you will also be able to see those two groups present here. See, it is one of the group is C double bond O, while the other group present here is OH. I am sure if you have studied a bit of nomenclature, you are aware about the name of C double bond O. This is called as a ketonic functional group, or I can simply write ketone there, while this is generally an alcohol. And if I talk about the term or the name that is used for these functional groups, then for ketones, a C double bond O is called as a carbonyl group, while for alcohol, OH is very commonly called as hydroxyl group. When I talk about the name of carboxylic acid functional group, it's called as carboxyl group. Now it's very interesting here. Since you can see the functional group, carboxylic acid functional group, is a fusion of these two functional groups, carbonyl group and hydroxyl group. Even the name of carboxylic acid group is a fusion of these two functional groups. It's called as carboxyl, in which the carbo term seems to be coming from carbonyl and the oxyl group seems to be coming from hydroxyl. So together C double bond O OH is called as a carboxylic group. Now going forward, we will start doing the general representation of a carboxylic acid. So I would in short form would write GR, which stands for general representation, and I will start writing it as R C double bond O OH. So C double bond O OH is the functional group of carboxylic acid that we have, and R is any group that can be hydrogen or any other alkyl group that we know. It can be any hydrogen or it can be any alkyl group such as methyl, ethyl, isopropyl, N-propyl and many other groups that you can have. So going forward, we will start taking examples of carboxylic acid by replacing that R with various groups that I have just written. So here I would make few columns. My first column would be example, my second column would be common name, and my last column would be IUPAC. The example that I'm going to start with is H. As I said, in the first example, R will be the simplest one and that will be an H. Carboxylic acid group as C double bond O OH can also very easily written as COOH, which clearly indicates that a carbon atom is doubly bonded to one of the oxygen and will be singly bonded to another oxygen, because we also have a hydrogen. Valency of carbon is 4, valency of oxygen is 2. So common name of this compound. Now common name of all carboxylic acid has got a slight bit of history behind them. What is the history and how it works out? I am there to help you out with that, so that you do not have to mug the names of all these compounds. In fact, you remember them, you understand them, and that is how you name them. So carboxylic acid, first compound that you have here, common name, one carbon atom carboxylic acid, is formic acid. Now one must be wondering why formic acid. Why formic acid? Because when we discuss about IUPAC name, it has got a logic behind it. It will always have a very simpler way to name a compound with respect to IUPAC. It's generally the common name which makes life a little difficult for students because they feel a common name has to be remembered. Yes, you have to remember, but what if you know a bit of history behind it, a bit of idea about it, a bit of trick about it, a bit of hint about it, then probably remembering that name would be much more easier for you. Formic acid, this term has actually come from a Latin term, and that term is formica. In Latin language, formica term was used for ants. I'm sure all of you must have experienced somewhere or the other that when an ant bites, it gives you a burning sensation. It gives you a burning sensation immediately when it bites anywhere on any body part. Now, why does it give you burning sensation when an ant bites? It releases an acid onto your skin. And, well, for your information, that acid that ant releases onto your skin is nothing else but formic acid. So, ant has naturally got formic acid present in it. And whenever it is threatened, it releases formic acid onto the skin of the individual, resulting into a burning sensation. Since ants in Latin term were called as formica, one carbon atom carboxylic acid was also called as formic acid. So this is how you can now remember the common name of the given compound. I will go ahead with the common name of the next carboxylic acid, in which I will replace that H by one more carbon, and that will be CH3, COOH. That's my second compound. The name of this compound that I have written now is acetic acid. It is called as acetic acid. Now again, you may think that I do not know why do you call it as acetic acid. What could be the reason? Well, I'm sure you must have heard about vinegar. I'm very much sure you must have heard about vinegar, and vinegar is a very common ingredient added in Chinese food. It is also added in various food substances prepared wherein we want to prevent it from oxidation, or we don't want it to get spoiled, so we add vinegar as a food preservative. Okay, that vinegar and acetic acid are one and the same thing. The only difference is that vinegar will have only 2% to maximum 4% of acetic acid, while the rest is water. And when we talk about acetic acid, yes, of course, we are talking about a 2 carbon atom, simple saturated carboxylic acid, which is CH3COOH. Now, how are we supposed to understand the name? Because vinegar and acetic acid do not seem to be related at all, right? In Latin language, I would use another term, and that term which comes from Latin language is acetum. I'm sure now this term relates. Acetum, acetic acid. Now you might be wondering, sir, why even acetum? Why should I call it as acetum, and how should I remember this term? So I'll discuss about that. I'm sure you are aware that alcohol is prepared from various types of fruits and grains. So we prepare it from berries and cherries and apple and grapes. We prepare them from grains as well. You must be surely aware about that. So when we prepare alcohol, there is a byproduct which comes out. That byproduct that is generally present in the form of is generally an acetic acid or acetum, which was called in Greek or Latin term. So while synthesis of alcohol, there is a byproduct which is formed. That byproduct is nothing else but a carboxylic acid consisting of 2 carbon. That thing at that point of time was termed as acetum. People were not aware that it is a carboxylic acid. People were not aware that it can be used as a food preservative, and it has got many other applications. But now today we are of course aware about it. So now it's the same acetic acid. The term acetic acid has come because 2 carbon atom carboxylic acid was termed as acetum when we used to find it as a byproduct during synthesis of alcohol. This is why we use the term acetum, acetic acid. Going forward with the next compound, which can be C2H5COOH. I'm increasing the number of carbon again here. So I've made that now into 3 carbon atom. The name of this compound here is propionic acid. Now again, a student might think, sometimes they do get confused. They see 3 carbon and they think like, okay, so 3 carbon, maybe because of that we are using the term propionic acid. Not true. The term propionic acid here is not being used for 3 carbon. There is an altogether history behind this as well. And I'm here to discuss with you so that you can remember the name much effectively. When we say propionic acid, that name is actually made up of 2 parts. The first part is pro. I'm sure you use that very commonly. You keep telling your friends, bro, I'm such a pro in this particular game or XYZ things, or maybe a sport or anything. So that's very commonly used term in today's language. We keep saying that I'm pro in this and pro in that. This pro here was used for this carboxylic acid because that pro means first. It actually means first, and it is not something that you are using now. It has been traditionally used from centuries now. So pro means first. And to give you one more very common example, we consume a lot of carbohydrates, we consume a lot of proteins. Pro, that is the most important biomolecule that you can have in your body, because of which we call it as protein. Similarly, this is propionic acid. This was the first pion. Pion stands for fatty acid. This was the first carboxylic acid to be discovered back in many centuries back. So when the carboxylic acids were getting discovered, the first carboxylic acid to be discovered was of 3 carbon atom, because of which we have this name propionic acid. This is why we have this name propionic acid, standing or indicating the first carboxylic acid to be synthesized. Going forward, I am going to increase the number of carbon atom here. So I will write here CH3, CH2, CH2, and now total number of carbon atoms present in the compound is 4. Okay, we had completed 3. We are going ahead with the fourth example and 4 carbon atom compound. Now this 4 carbon atom compound, carboxylic acid, has also got a common name, and its common name is butyric acid. Again, one can wonder, butyric acid, is it something to do with butter? Yes, you're right. It has to do something with butter, but what sort of a butter? It has to do something with rancid butter. And if you think that, so what is rancid butter? Is it a brand like Amul butter or Go cheese or Govardhan or something like that? Well, no. Rancid is not a type of a butter that you would love to have. It's the butter which has got actually spoiled, and the butter gets spoiled only when it is kept in the open. When it is kept in the open, or it is kept for a long period of time, maybe for a week or 2, there is increase in the content of butyric acid which is present in butter. As you keep or prolong the storage of a butter, the percentage of butyric acid in butter will keep on increasing. This is why 4 carbon atom carboxylic acid which is present in butter is now known as butyric acid. Butter, butyric acid. This is how we name this compound. Going forward with the next compound, CH3, CH2. Now I am also explaining in the due course various methods of representation of an organic compound. So just observe here. Now what I do is I have written a condensed form in which I have written CH2 3 times, because that's what we are doing. We are increasing the number of carbon atoms. So what I have done now, that CH2 which was written 2 times in the above example, now that CH2 naturally with increase in 1 more carbon will become 3 times. I have written a bracket, and outside the bracket I have written 3, indicating CH2 is present 3 times. You already have a CH3 present on the left hand side of the structure, so total number of carbon atoms have become 4. I have to increase my 1 more carbon, or I have to now introduce my carboxylic acid group. So I will write here CO2H. I can even write it as CO2H, where C double bond O can be written as CO2H. Different methods of representation for the compound. This compound here now will be called as valeric acid. Again, I hope you are understanding that why I am supposed to tell you these common names, because there are so many names and they are different from every other name, and then a student has to have some bit of idea in his mind, and only then he would be able to understand the name of the given compound. Now when we are talking about valeric acid, why do we call a 5 carbon atom carboxylic acid as valeric acid? There's again a very simple reason behind that. This carboxylic acid was actually discovered from a plant. The name of that plant was valerian plant. From the root of this plant, a 5 carbon atom carboxylic acid was isolated. Okay, because of which it was decided that let us name this carboxylic acid as valeric acid, because the source is valerian plant. Thus we call this compound as valeric acid. Okay, going forward with the next compound, I'm sure you must be very easily able to understand that now. I will write that CH2 4 times. I will write here COOH. That makes it 6 carbon atom carboxylic acid. The 6 carbon atom carboxylic acid is called as caproic acid. It's called as caproic acid. Again, a thought in your mind. So why do we call it as caproic acid? And based on that, I would again ask you one simple question. I'm sure you must have heard about various types of zodiac signs and sun signs. You must be knowing Aries, for example. I'm Aries, so you must have heard about various zodiac signs. Can you relate this name to one of the zodiac signs? Think of it. Aries, maybe? No, doesn't seem so. Maybe some other sun sign? Well, you caught it right. It is Capricorn. So Capricorn uses the term caper. Similarly, this carboxylic acid has also got the term caper. That caper term comes because of goat. Goat is also known as caper, and there is also a plant called as caper plant. So what it has to do with caproic acid? Has this acid been discovered or found from goat? No. Then from caper plant? No. I'll tell you how it is related. Caper plant, or you take or you go to any goat shed. When you go to a goat shed, you must, if you have ever been there, you get to see that more oftenly in villages. When you go there, you would come across a peculiar odor which comes from goat shed. When there are a lot of goats kept, maybe 20, 30 or 40 goats or maybe more than that have been kept in a particular place, there will be a peculiar odor which will come. That peculiar odor which is there is also present in this 6 carbon atom carboxylic acid. Exactly same odor. How caper plant? Caper plant, if you take a leaf of this plant and you try to rub it in your hand and you smell it, well, it's not going to be appealing. The smell is again going to be similar to the one which comes from goat shed. Because of its smell similar to the one which is found in goat shed, it's called as caproic acid. Caproic acid. This is the history behind the name of the given compound. Now when you look out or you go ahead or you refer all the examples that we have studied as of now, formic acid is called as formic acid because of ants. Ants were called in Latin term as formica, and when an ant bites, it releases formic acid onto our skin, which leaves behind a burning sensation. Thus we decided to name 1 carbon atom carboxylic acid as formic acid based on ants being the source for this acid. Similarly, 2 carbon atom carboxylic acid is obtained as a byproduct during preparation of alcohol. Alcohols are prepared by fermentation of fruits and grains, and a byproduct is obtained which is of 2 carbon atom carboxylic acid. Thus, a 2 carbon atom carboxylic acid is termed as acetic acid. 3 carbon atom carboxylic acid is termed as propionic acid. Now, why do we call it as propionic acid? In that the propion can be broken down into 2 terms. Pro, which stands for first, pion stands for fatty acid. It was the first carboxylic acid to be discovered, hence we call it as propionic acid. In the next example, I have a 4 carbon atom carboxylic acid which is called as butyric acid. The reason behind is butter contains butyric acid, but if the butter becomes rancid, it gets spoiled. The content of butyric acid in butter will increase. Thus, it's called as butter butyric acid. Valeric acid, it's because of valerian plant. 5 carbon atom carboxylic acid was discovered from the root of valerian plant. Thus, we call it as valeric acid. And last one, caproic acid, it's because of the odor. The odor of this 6 carbon atom carboxylic acid is similar to the one that we find in goat shed. Thus, caproic acid. So these were the names of these common names of all these carboxylic acids that we have just written. Now let's come to the IUPAC part, which is relatively easier, but then of course one has to be aware about the IUPAC name as well. Now, IUPAC name of this carboxylic acids are written as alkane. I am always supposed to give you hints, and that's the job of a teacher, to make life easier for you. That's what I'm trying to do here as well, making life easy for you and trying to make learning fun. So alkanes, last alphabet is going to be dropped. I will replace the last alphabet E of alkane, replace that, so that will be dropped. I've shown a downward arrow indicating that it is supposed to be dropped, and then I will replace it by a suffix. Suffix is something which comes after the primary suffix. We have any compound and it has got 2 things which comes at the end of the name. After the root word is alk, which indicates how many carbon atom you have. For example, meth, ith, prop, but indicate 1, 2, 3 and 4 carbon atoms respectively. And ane indicates that it is saturated. There is no double bond or triple bond present in the given compound. That is your primary suffix. And then after that comes the secondary suffix, which is generally indicating the presence of a functional group. We clearly know that the functional group present here in all these examples is a carboxylic acid. So it is going to end with an oic acid. Oic acid is the suffix which is used for carboxylic acids. So what I'll do here is, this is my suffix oic acid, and now the name of the first compound. If you observe the first compound, it has got one carbon atom. Thus the alkane which has one carbon atom, I'm sure all of you are aware about it. So an alkane with only one carbon atom is known as methane. So what I'll do is I will replace or drop that E of methane and I will replace it by oic acid. The name of the given compound becomes methanoic acid. So we call it as methanoic acid. If I talk about the next compound, that now all the names will become much more easier. If you look at the second compound, it contains 2 carbon. An alkane with 2 carbon atom is called as ethane. And the name of this compound is going to be ethane. We will replace that E of ethane. We will drop that E of ethane and replace that simply by OIC acid. OIC acid, oic acid. Okay. The name of the next compound contains 3 carbon. Alkane with 3 carbon atom is known as propane. Drop that E of propane and replace it by oic acid, makes it propanoic acid. Okay. Next compound consists of 4 carbon atom. 4 carbon atom carboxylic acid. It will be called as butane. Butaneoic acid. 5 carbon atom carboxylic acid. 5 carbon atom alkane is pentane. So pentaneoic acid. Last but not the least, 6 carbon atom carboxylic acid will be hexane, and I will replace it by oic acid, so it becomes hexanoic acid. This is how you can name all these organic compounds, common name as well as IUPAC, in a very simple and easy manner, and I'm sure all of you will remember these names. Alright. So this is a part that I have discussed today, but I had told you right at the beginning of this class that we are going to learn about nomenclature of carboxylic acid as well as its very important derivatives. So the second example that we are going to study, or I would say the first derivative of carboxylic acid that we are going to study now, is aldehydes. Okay, so let us start with that now. It's aldehydes. All right, aldehydes. Now everything will go by a relation with carboxylic acid. We need to relate it with carboxylic acid, and then life will become much easier and things will become much easier for you to understand and learn as well. An aldehydic functional group. Before I discuss an aldehydic functional group, I will make you recollect what was the functional group of carboxylic acid. Considering so many examples and names, I'm sure you can have that much of retention, and I'm made you understand that enough for you to recollect that a carboxylic acid functional group is C double bond OH. So what is the functional group of an aldehyde? Well, it's very simple. I will write C double bond OH, alright, and I'm simply going to replace that OH. It has to be different, otherwise it will be also carboxylic acid. So I will simply replace that OH by an H. If you replace that OH by an H, now this compound is nothing else but aldehyde. That is the difference between the functional group of a carboxylic acid and an aldehyde. I'm sure now you are also able to understand that why are they called as derivatives, because they are very closely related to each other. Now when we talk about this, we also, after the functional group, we also need to know the general representation. So general representation again will start with as will start as R, C double bond OH, in which R can be hydrogen, can be methyl, ethyl, as I said previously, could be any number of carbon atoms, infinite number of carbon atoms, and we can name them. Let us discuss about examples of aldehydes and understand and learn that what would be their common name as well as IUPAC, and really you are going to enjoy it. It is going to be very easy for you to relate and understand that how easy or effective it becomes for one student to understand the names of various other derivatives if he or she is very well versed with the name of carboxylic acids. Going forward, just observe this now. My first column is going to be example, in which I am going to write R will become equal to H, so I will write H. C double bond O H, that's my first example, alright, in which C double bond O H, as I explained already, is the functional group of your aldehyde, and in the first example R I have taken as H. I will write here common name, short form CN, and IUPAC name in the last column. What will be the name of this compound? And you will be surprised to know. Can you just tell me the name of one carbon atom carboxylic acid? What comes to your mind when I ask you one carbon atom carboxylic acid that we just discussed today in this session? Formic acid. I will simply write here formic acid. And you would be like, sir, what are you doing? This is not formic acid. I think it was an aldehyde. Yes, it is. But I am writing formic acid to make you understand that how closely they are related and how you are supposed to relate these names and make life easier for yourself. I am going to write formic acid and I will simply replace this IC acid. I have replaced that IC acid from formic acid. What I am left with is in form, and now I will write the entire name of the organic compound that we are studying. What are we studying? We are studying aldehydes. So replace that IC acid of formic acid by entire name of the class of compound that you are studying now, which is nothing else but aldehyde. So the name of the first aldehyde becomes formaldehyde. So if you know that one carbon atom carboxylic acid is called as formic acid, it is very easy for you to know that a one carbon atom aldehyde will be called as a formaldehyde. Alright. Going ahead with another example. CH3, C double bond O, OH. I'm sure you remember this is acetic acid. It is carboxylic acid and it was acetic acid, and I replace that OH now by an H. What would be the name? Acetic acid. And I am going to replace that IC acid of acetic acid and replace by that entire name, and it becomes acetaldehyde. That is how easy to name all these aldehydes now. So very easy for you to understand and learn. This is why I said learning is fun. Only if you know the right method of learning. IUPAC name. Now when I talk about IUPAC name of this compound, it is again very simple. Alright. It is alkane, as I keep saying, alkane. Alphabet E is to be dropped. Can you remember the initial two alphabets of the class of organic compound that we are learning? Can you recollect that? Initial two alphabets, can you see? I have purposely written them in yellow color so that you can clearly understand that why only initial two alphabets were colored as yellow. And that is what we are going to do now. It is alkane ka E was going to be replaced by Al. Is going to be replaced by Al, and the name of this compound becomes alkanal. It becomes alkanal. And this compound present here, the first compound here, contains one carbon. The first compound here contains one carbon. So this compound here, I can clearly write its IUPAC name will be methane. I will replace that E by Al, so it becomes methanol. As easy as that. Nothing else to do. This compound here contains two carbon atom. Since it contains two carbon atom, I am sure you are aware, a two carbon atom alkane is nothing else but a two carbon atom alkane is nothing but an ethane. So the name of this compound will become ethane. E is being replaced by Al, and this compound becomes ethanol. This is how easy it is to learn these names and also for you to understand these names. So common name I have also explained you all, and IUPAC also I have explained to you all, and you can definitely add more examples. You can take a 3 carbon atom carboxylic acid and you can think and relate it with 3 carbon atom aldehyde. 3 carbon atom carboxylic acid is called as propionic acid, if you remember, and a 3 carbon atom carboxylic aldehyde will be called as propionaldehyde. And how do you get to that name? Propionic acid's IC acid is replaced by aldehyde, it becomes propionaldehyde. So this is how easily one can learn about all these compounds. In the coming lectures, of course, we are going to learn about some more derivatives of carboxylic acids, but for this lecture, that is it from my end. Hope you will revise and learn about these names effectively. Thank you everyone, and see you next time. Till then, goodbye and take care.